We are just getting online now for an epic match in the Summit der Langrisser Season 7 between Tomato and Leumas. Just waiting for both players to get set up and ready for the match. And then I'll teleport us over there into spectate mode and we'll be able to watch. So I'm going to make sure that the Summit Discord has my link. Okay. So it looks like the players are just getting set up now, getting into the best of 3. Alright, and here we go with Van Pick for Game 1. And once we get in there, I'll turn animations on. I might as well because in a live game you actually have plenty of time to see animations between moves. So Leumas going with the first ban, Rosenseal, and Tomato banning the Lucretia. Tomato first pick Hilda, so securing a tank right away. We've got a Mariel in here, we've got a Bernhardt, a Zerida, and a Yulia. So some fairly interesting little deviations of the meta box on Tomato's side. We got some Leumas fans in the chat already. So Leumas actually banning out the true healers right away, leaving Tomato with Mariel, I guess, as an option, and then some sustainy picks as well, Yulia, if he wants to heal. For Leumas' side, he's got Himiko in the mix. Other than that, this looks a lot like my box. So going with first pick Watham into Hilda, so that's interesting. Alright, we've got Tomato fans in the chat now too, so now it gets interesting. It's good to have a nice balance in the chat. Tomato trying to decide what will be the main threats based on having a pretty good anti-crit healer here, as well as what he's planning to deploy in the next couple of picks. Oh, don't actually know who Tomato is, but actually cheering against Leumas. Okay, that still counts. I'm sure Tomato will take that. Alright, so Tomato is securing the closest thing he has to a healer now in Mariel. And he sneakily banned off a healer and a tank there, which forces Leumas to either choose a tank now if he wants, or Tomato could ban both of them, or one of his healers, or Tomato could ban both of those as well. Leumas does have kind of an off-healer option here in Kyra. Probably not as strong in terms of straight healing as Mariel is. Hey, welcome to the chat. It's going pretty well. It's going nice and non-stressfully since I'm not the one actually playing these matches. But you're going to see a higher caliber of PvP here tonight than what I was streaming last night. So Leumas does go ahead and secure a healer, which means if Tomato wants to take this option, if he wasn't just bluffing, he could potentially ban out Leumas' tanks. So this is a best-of-3 format, which means whoever wins 2 games here will advance, and they'll be facing Katakuri in the top 16. Okay, so Tomato actually just bans out one of the tanks and Himiko as well. He's picking Lucretia, so leaving Leumas with the option of Jugler as a tank is not exactly that threatening, since Lucretia can take Jugler down pretty easily. So Leumas going ahead and banning a couple of the long range, long legs type characters. That also takes out faction buff for Yulia and Werner. And he is going to go ahead and secure his Jugler, so he does have a tank. Tomato banning the Epsilon there, banning the Tiny Jess, mostly for teleport plays with these characters. I mean, I guess she can eventually chip away at Hilda. And Tomato taking the Yulia anyway. That's interesting. So Leumas goes ahead and bans both of her remaining faction buffers. Doesn't want Yulia to get a buff. And Leumas does still have access to 3 guard ignoring characters, so it is possible to work through this Hilda guard. Going with Elwyn instead for now. And both of the remaining characters that Elwyn can buff have now been banned. Alright, so Leumas does pick up a Guard Ignore in his 5th pick. Yeah, this is already set to be an interesting matchup because Leumas has kind of a de facto advantage in terms of mobility and reach here, with several long leg characters, and Tiaris with the possibility of bringing her 3C as well. And Jugler can jump, which gives him a lot of dynamic options. Tomato's team probably going to be opting to stay closer to the tank, which means it's going to be a little bit more of a static block, but still has lots of range with the Lucretia, and Muriel can certainly step out when the right play presents itself. Some self-sustaining options here. I'm not sure if Muriel is going to be able to hold down the fort entirely on her own in terms of team healing against possibly Witham AoE, although I think he's going to consider going single target just to try to disable Hilda's guard. Elwyn and Jugler can also do the same thing to help him kind of open the door to picking off some of these squishier characters here. But both players definitely have some weapons in their boxes here, so it's going to be interesting to see who gets to execute their chosen strategy most effectively. That's really going to be what determines victory. So just a few more seconds while they're setting up their skills, and then we'll be able to hop right into the match and see what troops and skill selection both players have opted for. Alright, let's take a look. Now, obviously in spectate mode we can't see the players or the characters' threat range. So we have a fairly standard Werner guessing game of what stance he's moved into there. He did proc Breeze. Leumas has Gargoyles, and he did bring the AoE on Watham. He's got AoE on Jugler as well. So Elwyn is going to be the stripper, and the rest of these units are going to be try to pound debuffs and cripple this Yulia to make sure she can't keep topping herself back up to full health. We got a single target Lucretia on this side. Phalanx on the Hilda. Another breeze on the Lucretia, so far both of these DPS have procced breezes. Every team needs a good stripper, Notorious Thief. Mariel has her big single target, she has God King's Aegis, and she has Salvation. Yeah, it would be something if strippers were this game's equivalent of Fire Emblem dancers, but not quite the same role. Kyra with both Guard Ignores and Sorceresses. Alright, Leumas popping Tiaris' 3C right away. So that wears off after 2 turns, and then it has a 9-turn cooldown. So that telegraphs that Leumas is planning something within the next turn or so. Obviously he has a little bit more of a mobile box, so the onus is a little more on Leumas to make the first move. So that makes sense. He wants to make sure he's fully geared up and ready. True Hero, welcome to the stream. Tomato is going to be looking for another turn at least to get this faction buff up for Hilda and Lucretia. This is the very start of Game 1, True Hero. So you didn't miss anything. Always happy to take a vote for less in-game music, to be perfectly honest. Alright, how's that? Should certainly be a lot more Kong than Z-Long now. So it looks like Watham is already making his play. He's gone in, planted his 3C, right in Tomato's face. Using his teleport to close ground. and then gets right in the midst of the team and blasts that AoE off. Okay, so even if Waitham dies next turn, he gets on terrain. We have heal block. Hilda unable to guard as well. So I don't have Mariel. Well, I just got Mariel when her banner came back, and I haven't literally built her at all. She's sitting at 3 stars. I've never deployed her. I've never used her, so I'm not super familiar with her actual debuff removal capabilities. I know she can be a fairly competent healer when needed. But is she going to be able to deal with? So she can dispel a debuff. It is just me tonight, Nonsense Bearer. Kata says his brain is fried right now, but I think he's been picking up tons and tons of matches for the Summit, so we'll let him have one break here. He might be picking up another game later tonight, I'm not sure. Yeah, definitely not going to be able to stand on her own as a sole debuff remover here. Especially if there's another big AoE coming in. If Leumas has any kind of follow-up ready. So Lucretia opting just to stay back and clear the sword. And then tucks her far away with the Golem teleport. So Tomato definitely anticipating some follow-up here and wants to try to space his characters out. Not able to fully hide behind this non-guarding Hilda right now either. No clock for Leumas on either of those. Oh, I guess he did clock his 3C since that's back now. But no clock on the actual AoE. I guess he's already invested, he's behind enemy lines, he figures he might as well go all in. He clocks the 3C again. And he can land himself on a tree again as well. I guess it depends on who he wants to... Oh, interesting. He's going for the Mariel first. Because she's the only real healing. So even that option, even the no debuff removal option is off the table for Tomato now. So with the 1-2 punch and the nice clock from Waitham, just like that, Tomato's team is debuffed. Pretty beat up. Hilda's not guarding, and the only excuse for healer is gone. I think Leumas still doesn't want to let off the gas here, though, because even if it takes his team any time to get caught up here, then Tomato could regroup around Hilda once her guard comes back, so I think we're going to see Elwyn and Jugler at least trying to make their way in here very soon. Now Tomato has to decide what to do with this turn. A Jugler jump right now won't quite reach the rest of the team with a blast. So just getting Elwyn into position to be able to join the rush next turn. He'll be able to hit pretty much whoever he wants next turn. So Yulia clearing the Watham. She should heal back up. Not quite to 100%. Nonsense, Leumas used his first turn, or his first action of this turn to move Watham in, do another 3C, and then move up and kill the Mariel. So functionally that ends up being a bit more of a trade in Leumas' favor. He loses the Watham, Tomato loses Mariel, and a lot of setup as well. We've still got heal reversal on here. One more turn of Hilda not guarding. Can't be healed. Just the usual Watham shenanigans. Yulia is the unit who's in pretty good shape still. She's not being guarded, of course. It'll actually be interesting to see how Leumas decides to take care of her. I suppose he can hit her with Elwyn's 3C and block her heals, and then follow up with Jugler or Kyra. But if he gives Tomato until next turn without taking out this Yulia, then Hilda will be guarding again. So Leumas setting up on the fringes of the battlefield. Okay, Tomato does use his first action here to get that last remaining can't guard debuff off Hilda, so she's guarding again. For a turn, anyway. Which means the whole team here is under guard except for Werner, who is in a stance that we aren't sure which stance it is right now. We can guess from the posturing, it looks like defensive stance or counterattack stance. But on the other hand, who is he really baiting? Alright, so Leumas is activating the Elwyn. Activating the Elwyn into Hilda. And he stripped pretty much everything. He stripped guard. And of course she's passive blocked as well. So guard is off. Tomato does have the option to team up on this Elwyn now, if he wants to kill him and his revive. That's one of the things about going with Elwyn when the enemy team still has a few actions left. Yeah, that's right. Kyura's reach is gimped by the fact that she only has 4 allies right now. Yeah, stopping the guard, the timing was interesting just because this is coming back next turn anyway, so if Tomato lives through this initial onslaught, he will have another chance to reset. We'll just see what kind of damage Leumas can do before then. Tomato's running low on time as well, so that could be causing some pressure, some decision-making pressure. That could lean to Leumas' favor. And with the pulse from the golem, she's actually able to put her guard up again immediately next turn. Jug can jump in an AoE. And he's a Master of Ice, Jug, as well, so he'll have a AoE follow-up for his own AoE. At this point, if Tomato wants to fully kill off this Elwyn, he is going to have to use Werner as well as Yulia, which is going to mess up whatever plans he had with Werner's stance. Because Werner attacking with 3C, it will change his stance, depending on whether he kills or not. So there's the first life down, courtesy of Yulia. So now we'll see if he wants to bring Werner into the mix here. Finishing off the Elwyn is probably worth it, to be honest. I think, rather than stripping the buffs on Hilda with that Elwyn, yeah, going for the Werner might have been another option there. Now, Leumas might have been hesitant to do that because of the Lancer troops. But having first strike on that charge kind of makes Werner's stance irrelevant. When it comes to that move, at least. So that's game 1 in Tomato's favor. We're cross-server for Leumas. So let's tune back in for game 2. And we're going to be on Eye of the Desert this time. Tomato as player 1 again. And we'll just wait and see if either player decides to make a change from their backup box. Yeah, Mellifluent. I've definitely seen Elwyn's wipe out full HP Lancer Werners before in defensive stance. So Elwyn's first strike into 3C, and by that token also attack stance Werners are 2 really good weapons against counter-strike stance Werners. I think Leumas would have still had a similar problem, though, if he had gone for the Werner instead of the Hilda strips, just because Yulia would have been able to take out a life, and he would have been in a similar situation with Hilda getting her guard back up and Yulia still healthy. So the rush play with Watham heal blocking everyone and then killing the only healer Tomato had was definitely an interesting strategic play. It was just Leumas' follow-up was a little bit too slow or a little bit too far behind to fully take advantage. Alright, we have a lot of changes on Leumas' side. We're bringing up a full AoE team here. Vincent, Bozel, Sage of the Trees, Lana, Varna, and Kruger all coming up. Tomato possibly anticipating something like that, bringing up Kyra as well as a kind of an anti-AoE tech, but another good guard ignore as well. Alright, so Leumas going to be changing gears entirely, so let's see how this band pick goes. He's getting rid of Rosen, first of all, which is always a good strategy when you have some AoE debuffs that you want to use. And Tomato doesn't have a Jugler in here, so Kyra is kind of his strongest anti-AoE option right now. Liana as well, obviously, as a good anti-AoE, anti-debuff healer with Rosen off the table. So he is going with the first pick Kyra. Pretty astute choice to bring her up from the side box and then pick her first. And Leumas going with first choice Sage of the Trees. That's interesting. That's something I saw him do a few times earlier in the season. So Sage of the Trees definitely helps enable a lot of the rest of his box with his Myth faction buff. His tiles can also just be pretty annoying. We'll see if Tomato wants to pick Hilda this soon. Hilda can at least counter the pushing from Sage's 3C. But other than that, she's not a super strong anti-AoE option. Yeah, securing a real healer first. That makes a lot of sense. Leumas will probably be looking to take more long legs off the table. Kruger second pick. And he's getting rid of the self-sustaining options that Tomato has. A healthy Yulia is a dangerous Yulia. Tomato loves to use up as much time as he can during the ban pick phase, so he is going with Zerida. Assassins potentially strong against the kind of team that Leumas is looking to deploy here. Okay, Leumas getting rid of those other anti-rush threats now. And he is going to get Vincent out. Tomato now getting rid of the princesses. Deploying a third assassin. Oh, and Leumas is going to bring out the Varna. I love seeing this especially in a tournament match. Varna is a really interesting AoE enabler now. With her 3C skill, it casts a debuff on enemies that it hits that causes them to take increased AoE damage. So that's something that the likes of Kruger and Vincent definitely appreciate. Alright, so Leumas also manages to get Rosenseal as the last spot. She can buff... Is Varna Empire? I think she is. Vincent's definitely Empire. And Tomato locks up a healer of choice, or not healer, a tank of choice here. So he does have a tank and a healer. Christiane is going to help reduce the magic damage that some of Leumas' units can do. Or Kruger and Sage, I guess. But yeah, weathering this storm of AoEs is going to be very interesting. We'll see if Leumas manages to put enough damage and enough debuffs on Tomato's team to cripple them before these assassins manage to pick Leumas' team apart. So Leumas didn't really need to bother with a tank, since all of Tomato's DPS basically ignore tanks anyway. So it behooves Leumas to have more weapons on his team. Yeah, stripping Gospel, or if he can just pile up enough damage that the Liana can't keep up. So the other thing about Liana's... I mean, Kyra is kind of an off healer here. Liana can also create a healer with her 3C. The person that she casts it on does nearby proximity healing after they take an action, so she can cast that on someone and get a little bit of extra healing. Yeah, Werner also heals himself, so he does have a decent amount of sustain here. So it'll be interesting to see whether Leumas can overwhelm it, or if Tomato can weather the storm and, you know, systematically take pieces of Leumas' team off the board. We shall see. So we don't have a Gospel on Kyra. But we do have Sky Archer for more debuffs, and we do have Ode to Creation, so that's a Gospel on herself and whoever she casts it on. And she's going to go ahead and open the match right away by casting it on Christiane. I might have considered using Christiane's turn first, but that's probably splitting hairs. We do have Faction Buff and Killing Blow on Zerida, so she doesn't have Alhazard. She probably figures she doesn't need it. Killing Blow should be enough with Hide and Seek. And then the only change to this Werner from what we saw in the first game is he's bringing Sneak Attack now, because there's significantly less interesting terrain on this map. So he's getting out in front and getting in a stance. If I had to guess, in this game, I'd say probably attack stance. There's not really a unit on Leumas' team that he has any interest in baiting to attack into him, so counterattack stance not going to be super, super useful for him. Zerida running back and getting him buffed up. We're probably going to see Tomato's team spread out a little bit. So fairly typical sets. Yeah, fairly typical sets here, and we do have the faction buff, and we do have Miracle on Rosenseal. She's not really interested in debuff immunities at all. She's here solely to enable this team. And Leumas using the Lewd Varna skin, Lewdmas. One potentially helpful thing about Rosenseal's faction buff is it can remove a buff from whoever's attacking you before combat. So there's nothing here that'll really totally screw one of these characters over, but it could be a nuisance. Okay, so game 2 is well underway here now, with both teams just finishing their setup and finishing their opening positions. That is very true, True Hero. I wonder if that skin was censored in China. I know there's been several skins that have been slightly different in global. Sage of the Trees happy just to open up a little bit of space here, using his 3C just to push Werner back a couple squares. Didn't clock it though. So Zerida putting some pressure on this lower area of the map. Lots of range. Or lots of reach, I should say. Werner coming up to reassert almost his original opening position. So we've got a lot of assassin pressure on this map now. Werner's covering a lot of the top, Zerida covering a lot of the bottom, Kyra covering a lot of the middle. Let's see what Leumas wants to do. Leumas was very happy to charge right in and open proceedings in the last game. In the long run, it didn't end up working out for him, but Watham certainly mixed things up. Let's see if Leumas is going to follow a similar tack here and try to get in there as quickly as possible and start making a mess. Or if he's going to hang back a little bit and see if Tomato wants to make the first move by exposing one of these assassins. Looks like it's going to be the former. I mean, this is what Vincent is for, really. Vincent just loves to get in the mix, mess things up, and then if he dies, that's kind of part of his plan. So, not a lot of long-term damage with the Kyra and the Werner healing. Kyra can't use passive skills right now, so her teleport is off the table. And of course Vincent, once he uses that move, he's happy just to kind of sit in front of the enemy team and ask to be killed. Oh, barely surviving the Kyra there. She can't teleport, but she can spread, or try to spread, those debuffs around at least. Zerida does not have Alhazard, so she is not immune to debuffs, so she catches a few off Kyra there. And Vincent just survives that attack, with 28 hit points originally before he healed up. Alright, Varna's gonna make a move. Leumas definitely wants this little cluster of enemies to be hit with that increased AoE damage debuff. So Kyra's got it, and She's debuffed. Now, of course, we still do have Liana here, back here, waiting to do some debuff removal. She hasn't called out the Sky Archer yet. But the assassins have all committed themselves this turn, so Varna's safe for now. Alright, here comes the Sky Archer. Let's see what he can do in terms of debuff removal. The extra AoE damage debuff is off Kyra. Still on Zerida. So we just have Kruger now. Let's see what he can do with this little setup that's been given to him. Zerida is pretty well out of the way. Kruger catching a breeze there. Alright, so Werner's fine. I mean, he did catch a damage dealt debuff, but he's probably in attack stance. Kruger has his shield up. No debuffs here, thanks to Liana's 3C, but they are hurt. Kyra can't be healed, and Zerida still has her original debuffs from before, from Varna. So she'll take increased AoE damage for what it's worth. Let's see what Tomato's opening gambit is going to be here. Is he going to try to take out one of these threats with as many assassins? Or is he going to try to climb out from under this little debuff damage pit that he's in? He does literally have Leet HP, doesn't he, Freed? Leet! The Sky Archer getting a Gale, okay. Actually a decent opportunity to get another Dispel off. Alright, so that puts Kyra back in game shape. It's almost like Loomis's team wasn't even here. It's almost like Loomis's team wasn't even here. Okay, some more good damage from Varna. So we're seeing that Varna is not just an AoE team support. She can actually put up some legit damage in her own right. And she gets the King's Crown buff on Kruger as well. So Tomato's options for what to attack here are kind of a little bit more limited than they look. Like, Varna's already taken her action here, so she's not a super high priority target. Kruger would obviously be a high priority target, except he's very difficult to kill. Be interesting to see if this fully healthy but damage dealt debuffed, probably attack stance Werner can do the trick. And Varna survives that Kyra. So that's 2 attacks. Kyra's 3C failed to kill Vincent, and then her 2C failed to kill the Varna. And it looks like the debuff immunity is off Christiane and Liana now, so they did pick up some debuffs from Kyra's curse, courtesy of Kruger. Yeah, defensive stance Werner. I mean, I suppose the only real benefit of putting Werner into defensive stance in this kind of game is specifically for that AoE healing, like you said, Mellifluent. So Vincent, again, happy to get in deep behind enemy lines and mix things up. Oh, Liana goes down. Everyone else is pretty hurt. We also have the promise of this Kruger still following close behind. Kyra's out of gas, so she's not really a threat. Alright. Defensive Werner failing to take out that Kruger. I think this one is pretty much in the bag for Leumas. I don't want to call it too early because there's still a lot that can go wrong. Yeah. Alright, so the piling on AoE damage plan worked out for Leumas. And that makes this 1 game apiece, so we're going into the tiebreaker, game 3. Doesn't get any more exciting than that. Very evenly matched. 2 strong PvP players here. Our next match is going to be on the Gemini Bridge. So let's see if Leumas even has anything left in his backup box, for one. And while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and crack the midstream beverage. Not even going to pour it this time. Straight from the can to my mouth. I guess this is as good an opportunity as any, by the way, to remind you all, if you haven't already, or even if you have already, and you're feeling extra generous, if you haven't already donated to the Summit der Langrisser, this whole community-organized tournament works because of the community. It's pretty much the only thing keeping this going. So you can go to the TSdL page on Wikigrisser Next, and there's a donation link right there. If you don't know where Wikigrisser Next is, I'll put the link in the VOD for this video on YouTube after. Oh wow, Leumas is essentially changing his entire box again. So he's sending his AoE team back down, and he's bringing up Lewin and Illustrial. Tomato also brought Illustrial up. This is an Illustrial map, so it makes sense that they would both bring her up. But yeah, if you haven't already donated, then go check out, find that donate link, and even send us a couple bucks. Like, send coffee money, send pocket change, whatever you find in the couch cushions, or send a hugely generous donation. You know, either one of those would be well appreciated by the organizers of the tournament. I should clarify, I'm not an organizer of the tournament. I'm just streaming this match because I find these PvP tournament matches interesting. So none of that money goes to me. Don't worry about me. All the prize money that goes to the winners of the tournament comes from your donations. So obviously, the more generous donation, the more incentive there is for awesome PvP players like these guys to come out and put on their best performance for us. So yeah, please do donate. Nonsense Bear, if you would rather give me money, then, you know, my donation links are easy to find as well. I'm certainly not going to say no to donations for me. Either way, if you're feeling generous, you have options. Thank you for the follow also, by the way, Hero and Death Crystal. Alright, we're underway with band pick here now. So, Tomato gets Christiane out first. And Watham is banned again, so he didn't want to deal with Watham after that game 1. Leumas is getting Epsilon, interesting. So Leumas also got rid of a couple of Tomato's scary long-distance assassins in Cherie and Illustrial. Tomato getting rid of Leumas's 2 traditional tanks, so he is going to have to run tankless, it looks like, because Jugler's not in this box anymore. Lewin has the possibility of tanking, but personally, I don't think Lewin is really the best when he's being relied on to tank. He's good as a bulky, like, brawler-type unit, but if you need to, like, hug him and rely on that passive guard skill, I don't know. He comes up short for me. He's not really going to be able to guard against Lucretia anyway, so I suspect we're going to see Leumas going with some more rush-type threats to basically try to overrun this team. But we'll see what Tomato gives him. Alright, finally getting rid of the Illustrial. And Werner as well. Counterpicking with his own Elwyn, so he does reclaim a little bit of control of the center of the map there against Leumas's long leg threats. And Tomato's probably going to want to secure a healer here now. Unless he's happy to rely on the Mariel or the Licorice as a possible last pick, he could pick Zerida now and then go with whatever healer Leumas decides to leave for him. Both are options. Yeah. I don't think he's necessarily going to need the Zerida, given the fact that Leumas isn't going to be playing a tank. So Florentia can help load up this Rush. She does have Rush as an option. She has Act Again. Although she'll only be able to use the Act Again once, since she doesn't have any buffers in here. Lewin is a good endgame brawler, and he does have faction buff from Elwyn. Epsilon obviously has his own faction buff. So this is an interesting team. I mean, he has no tank, so he's going to have to hope to be able to overwhelm Tomato's team, but he has some sneaky options. We've got a kind of teleport or act again option. We'll see. I'm not sure if Lewin's going to be able to really do too much in terms of carrying against a Lucretia and an Elwyn. Those are both dangerous characters for Lewin. So Tomato definitely playing more of a traditional kind of solid tank push team here. He's got his strong tank, which faction buffs Lucretia. He's got his true healer and his kind of flex healer, and then Elwyn as a strong single target DPS. So he's got the more well-rounded team. So the real question is going to be whether Leumas can really make this team, this engine, work for him. Freed, Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew. No, I've got... This is another one of those damn carbonated sparkling watermelon waters. I'm trying to keep summer alive. There's a ton of snow out there, so up here in Canada, you try to keep the memory of summer on your tongue and in your mind in whatever way you can. So, summery drinks here tonight. Okay, just a few seconds left until go time, and we'll see what they've deployed. So we've got Phalanx on the Christiane to help deal with these physical threats. We do have Heaven's Sanction on Lucretia, and other than that, we've got a couple single target skills. And he goes with old traditional Elwyn, with the normal faction buff and Sword Soul. He doesn't really want the auto 3C faction buff. Possibly anticipating more of a protracted match. He wants to be able to cast that faction buff again later on when he needs it. So Epsilon with Gargoyles. Standard Lewin loadout. Pretty standard TJS as well. Alright, this is really going to be an interesting match to see. I think, you know, I don't have the best Apex track record, but I'm not saying I'm predicting Tomato has the stronger team, but Tomato definitely has the more comfortable team. He can kind of play things the way he wants. And the onus is kind of going to be on Leumas to crack through that or not. Leumas is also going to need to get stacks for this Pepsi somehow. Ideally for him by killing Tomato's units. That's really the best way to get stacks for Epsilon. Your enemy dying. The breeze on Florentia is not going to be that impactful. Aniril, welcome to the stream. Right in time for Game 3, the deciding match, the tiebreaker between Tomato and Leumas. Tomato won Game 1 after Leumas's initial Watham AoE rush was kind of stymied and didn't manage to crack the line. But then Leumas won Game 2 when his Varna, Kruger, and Vincent AoE rush did crack the line. Yeah, this is definitely a big match. The winner will go on to face Katakuri in the top 16. By the way, Death Crystal, if you want to drop the link to the TSdL Wikigrisser page in the chat, in case anyone doesn't have Google abilities or doesn't already have the link, you can go ahead and drop the link. I promise not to ban you for spamming. Tomato, probably the last Russian player in TSdL. Oh, interesting. And Lou is the big sensei. Well, I suppose, Aniril, one way of looking at that is no matter who wins, it's not a bad result. Okay, last chance to see if Leumas is going to make a kind of teleport play to set him up for the next turn. Kind of tough because Lucretia's action is still here, and then Tomato has turn priority. So she's just going to kind of fall in line with the rest of her team. They're both guildies too, wow. You're in a strongman guild. My guildie Chung fought earlier today in his summit match, and I haven't watched it yet, so no spoilers. I don't know if he won or not. I'm going to be watching it right after this. Notorious, you should just ask. Go into your guild chat and say, did anyone enter the TSdL? And probably if they did well, they'll say, I sure did. And if they didn't do well, they'll not say anything. But if they didn't, then they should next season. We had a wide variety of players in the tournament this season. Lots of first-timers, lots of people who... a few people who weren't even Langrisser rank in Apex Arena, so lots of opportunities to gain experience, become better at PvP. That's the thing, even if you don't end up in these like top 32 elimination rounds, that's fine, you still get to play a few games against interesting people, and learn some new tricks, and then get eliminated. Okay, Leumas is going to have to find a way to eventually get in here without getting picked off. But I don't think he's going to be in too much of a rush to kind of rush headlong in like he did in the last two games either. It's one thing to be able to use his 3C to kind of disable Christian, but he needs to have follow-up after that. Okay, so Epsilon here is in stealth mode, but don't forget that we have an AoE on this Lucretia, so she can actually crack that by bringing him below 100%. She doesn't even need to be able to target it at him. She can just Heaven's Sanction around, you know, around here, and that'll drop him. Drop him into hittable range. But is there really a reason or need to do that yet if he doesn't have someone who can then rush in and kill that Epsilon? Is that a trade he wants to make? Yep, she can. And if he goes back up to 100%, then his stealth will come back. Interesting, putting a little bit of chip damage on the Christian and then giving Lewin legs. So Lewin able to jump into the action and throw his AoE down if he wants to, get a base layer. And rushing the Christian. Notorious, if you're going to get carried, you might as well get carried to Gold 3 so you can get those sweet skins. That's a fair point, though. If your units aren't set up for PvP, then that can be fairly tricky. Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing about... Even PvE players love those skins. It depends on the season. Like, the season where Sophia's goddess skin was on offer, that's like an EOL quality skin. A lot of people were scrambling to get to Gold 3 for that one. So as predicted, Lewin makes the rush in and gets his holy ground. That's going to start removing buffs. Although Christian is still tanking. guess Lewin either didn't think he was going to need this city wall, or he's leaving that open for someone else, like possibly Epsilon, to come in and occupy it. Now we'll get to see how survivable Lewin actually is, because he's going to have to survive a couple of HP checks here. The skin that I regret missing the most, yeah, is the Emmerich one. I really wish they would make them available somehow, even just to buy them for skin tickets in the shop, like they do with the Apex Champion skins. It's been years. The old skins are old. Make some money off them. I mean, Lewin survives his first HP check. T-Jess is going to jump into the rush now. She'll be able to get some team healing off for Epsilon and Flo and Lewin as well, if that's what Leumas opts for right now. Christiane gets the Defender proc, and it is barely enough to keep her first life alive. That does give Lewin the damage reduction shield, so... Oh, it's only when he's 100%, so it doesn't give him anything. Nope, doesn't give him anything. Yeah, it's from Epic fan art. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Lance skin with the dragon originated as from that same fan art contest in China. But yeah, that Sophia skin is OP. So yeah, Christiane barely hangs on with a sliver of health there. Muriel making a play at this Lewin. Lewin healing back up, but not quite to 100%. And then takes a pot shot at Light of Genesis. Not enough to kill either unit, but it does shove them around. Lewin is in prime Elwyn chomping position now. Christiane's still guarding, but Elwyn has the option of probably taking off her first life here. And it looks like that's what he's going for. Now this is just path, it's not actually grassland, so he's not going to get unicorn effect. So not enough to actually chew through those phalanxes. Barely. Yep, nonsense. The forbidden procs have been coming in very clutch for Tomato in this game. Alright, so this is the next turn, which means we have Tomato with turn priority here, and a few juicy targets. Yeah, guard is off Christiane, so that's why I think Tomato should really use this opportunity to kill one of Loomis's threatening units, rather than try to heal this back up. Even healed fully, she's not really doing too much right now. So if Leumas takes a life off her, that's fine. There's no unicornable terrain. We got a Wind Wall proc on Lewin, and it's not enough to save him. Not against magic. So one kind of little side effect of that is it refreshes Elwyn's faction buff, and it does give Epsilon a stack, so that's something. Lewin's job was to take a couple hits and create this holy ground. So let's see if Leumas is able to capitalize on this new situation. Elwyn is pretty much out of consideration as a target for Leumas because this Elwyn has already used his charge. Able to take the first life off the Muriel with a long-distance T-Jess. She catches a breeze as well. Not sure if she's going to live long enough to take advantage of it. Probably. Yeah, I don't think... So really, looking at the way things look down here, with this not guarding, life already off this, everyone's pretty beat up. This is pretty much the core of Tomato's team up in the top corner now. We have Lucretia and her puppet, so she still has a revive. They're nestled safely out of Lewin's terrain. Alright, let's see if Muriel can do this. Oh yeah, easily, easily. So T-Jess is down. Muriel, there's no reason for her not to go crazy behind enemy lines here now, because she's already used her skills, she's lost her life, she's pretty much expendable. So Tomato can chuck her at Loomis's line and just... yeah, lose her. She brought a T-Jess down with her, so that was worth it. So Leumas has to be careful of this Elwyn, which hasn't been activated yet. Spoke too soon, here he comes. So he positions such that he's able to take out Loomis's Elwyn, and he's far away enough from his team that he can still get revived. Loomis's Elwyn isn't going to be able to heal. So even if Leumas does want to take a life off this with Epsilon, he'll be able to come back and probably punish the Epsilon. Yeah, it doesn't look good for Leumas just because he needs to be able to kill this Elwyn twice somehow. Epsilon can definitely do it once, but can he survive afterwards? That's the real question. Lucretia at least is far enough away that she probably won't be jumping into the play right now. Alright, so now an opportunity presents itself to get that Christiane healed back up. Makes sense. It's a good time for Tomato to take advantage of that. He doesn't have more pressing victims to be killing right now. Oh, she does have her 3C up. She must have clocked it. I thought she used it earlier on the Epsilon. Freed, is that some secret inside information? Do you know Leumas's Epsilon has Arcane Battle Garb? Nope. That's the first life, though, so... I guess Leumas is going to be relying on turn priority to be able to do something next turn. But he doesn't have a guard ignore. And he doesn't have her 3C. So Tomato can just put Elwyn under guard here. So Elwyn's under guard, Leumas does not have a way to kill it. Yeah. Protecting Elwyn, very important. So that heal block is off him now, so next time he engages he will be able to heal back up. And Elwyn should be far enough away. Yeah, that this 3C is not going to quite be able to reach him. Epsilon might need to run away as well. Several turns before his 3C comes back, though. Okay, he's giving himself options by running up here. He's able to pressure this kind of backline Lucretia a little bit, although he wants to be careful doing that. Okay, so Leumas definitely down but not out. He has his Elwyn can come back and heal now. Epsilon is kind of reset, waiting for cooldowns. She does still have Sanction available, yeah, so she can chip him out of his hide and his shield. Shield is down, hide is down. Leumas gets first action. Go Pikachu, thank you for the sub. So Leumas basically using his Epsilon, he figures he's in trouble anyway, he might as well do some damage with it. Uh-oh, and his Elwyn is down. So he's shielded again at least, he got a stack from that. He's fully stacked up now, he has all 4 stacks, 100% health, shielded. But he is up here dealing with this Lucretia. He got 1 life off her. What's she gonna do? How epic would it be to see a full solo Epsilon carry in the tiebreaker? Tomato getting his Lucretia all up and ready as possible. Yeah, he can break the shield with the puppet before attacking with Lucretia. Oh, he goes with Lucretia first! That takes the shield down. I don't think the puppet's going to be able to finish it. Pepsi 3C is now back up. And Elwyn is way far away, with no charge. So Epsilon... Oh, barely survives! Oh, he survives, but he's still in really deep. He's debuffed, and he's got to be able to take a hit from Christiane, Florentia, and the puppet. So the puppet's going to soften him up. I don't think so. I think he's toast. Yep, Florentia finishes him off. And what an exciting finish to this best of 3. In Game 3, Tomato barely scrapes it out against a wannabe super heroic Epsilon. So excellent game, both players. Tomato, Leumas, thank you so much for those super cool strategic games. And congratulations to Tomato, who's moving on to the top 16, where he will face Katakuri. And thank you, Leumas, for joining the Summit der Langrisser, and we'll see you in the next season for sure. Thanks to everyone who came out to catch the stream. Thanks to Go Pikachu for the sub earlier. That's going to be it for me, and now, like I said, I'm going to go back and catch up on some of the games that I missed earlier. I want to see how Chung did. No spoilers in the chat, but stay tuned. I'm going to be probably streaming more Summit der Langrisser later on. Not sure when. Really just depends on when an interesting game comes up. And then, of course, I'm going to have some of my own games to stream next week as well. Notorious Thief, yes, this is basically single elimination. So it was a best-of-3 match in the bracket, and now that Leumas has lost this best-of-3, he's eliminated from the tournament altogether. So there's no, like, lower bracket where they can climb through and come back and try to fight for the championship. Just makes things a little bit easier to organize, given that we had over 100 people join the tournament. But yeah, hopefully things are staying entertaining regardless. So thanks for coming out, everyone. I'll catch you in the next one. Happy Langrissing, everyone.